America's best days are yet to come. That's because conservatives like you know and live the values our great country was built on. The Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard in the D.C. swamp each day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Been doing a lot of reading and thinking and note-taking today, ladies and gentlemen. What is going on in the Republican Party, the conservative movement, MAGA, the internet, radio, TV? Well, let's put down a few fundamental markers, okay? The past is crucially important. You and I, we didn't live during the time of Socrates and Aristotle and Cicero. We didn't even live during the time of John Locke and Montesquieu. We didn't even live during the time of Adam Smith, Edmund Burke, the founders of our country, the men who met in Philadelphia and framed our Constitution and went in the state capitals and ratified it. We weren't around during the Civil War when this country really was on the edge of destroying itself, and yet Abraham Lincoln led us through it. And very few of us were there during World War II, the greatest generation that lived through and fought through a depression and the greatest and most horrible war. But we have men and women who have lived through difficulties and so forth and so on. When we dismiss our history, we will fail like every other nation, every other society, every other people. The reason our history is important is because it teaches us many things. Because it demonstrates what patriotism and allegiance to our country is all about, which is what we must demand from immigrants. Assimilation into our society. But how can we demand from immigrants that they assimilate into our society when we have American citizens who trash our society, who trash our history, who trash what's come before? And I'm not even simply talking about the Marxists in the Democrat Party. I'm talking about the neo-fascists on the so-called right. They believe that they have all wisdom, which is a Marxist point of view, actually. Certainly not a conservative one. And so when you mention the greats from the past, Ronald Reagan, recent past, Bill Buckley, Milton Friedman, they laugh. Those days are over. We're starting brand new today. We we MAGA, we conservatives, we Republicans, whatever we are. Everything starts today. That's what they say. Everything starts today with what? Failed pollsters? People on the internet? People who are 19 years old? Seriously? Then we might as well shut down everything. Burn down the libraries. Eliminate all the data banks. Because today's the day. Why do you think the Marxists and the fascists destroy everything that came before? Why do you think they do these things? They want a clean slate. There's a lot we can learn from people who've come before us, who've done great things and who've made mistakes. A lot. The ego, the narcissism that many in the current young generation have is beyond belief to me. And you see it all over the podcast world, all over the so-called influencers, all over the internet. They don't represent the vast majority of the American people. The vast majority of the American people don't even know who they are. Believe it or not. They don't. They don't. And they don't care about Rogan or Megyn Kelly or Tucker Carlson. And even lesser knowns, Fuentes. If they knew about Fuentes, they'd be cleaning them off the bottom of their shoes like dog crap. They wouldn't care. But they call themselves influencers. And the reason is they have an impact on people who are what? On the internet. And then media entrails that promote these people who are on the internet. So this is why you get viewpoints that are absolutely unimaginable. Sick. Evil. This is why you get racist and bigoted and anti-Semitic and anti-American and anti-Christian propaganda that's pushed out and makes its way into at least a portion of the population. The ignorance about World War II and the Third Reich and the great Winston Churchill and the great American Yank is just unbelievable. We're supposed to debate it. It's nothing to debate. You don't debate stupidity. You don't debate evil. We were the good guys. They were the bad guys. You don't debate if these Islamist nations that have been pushing terrorism, including terrorism that has killed thousands and thousands of Americans here in our homeland and overseas, whether you should get a payday from those people, whether you should go over and be vetted by those people and live in the best hotels for a week and be given the best food for a week, and then all of a sudden, hey, they're not so bad after all. These are simpletons. They're an inch deep. And yet there they are. They show up in various youth movements through our colleges and universities to tell young people what to think. The irony that you'll get these people who are in their 40s and 50s, some in their 60s, who go in front of these people and tell them, these young people, tell them what to think. When one of the things they tell them what to think is not to think about what came before. Take Ronald Reagan, one of the greatest leaders in world history, one of the greatest presidents in American history, by every measure. Domestic policy, economic success, foreign policy, building up the United States military. The country was at a very, very low level. We're supposed to forget about him, supposed to dismiss him. He doesn't matter. Some of you older people, you may remember him. We younger people, we don't remember him at all. The hell with him. The only thing that matters is today and our future. Wow. It's amazing, isn't it? Then these people say they're America first. But they're not America first. How can you be America first when you don't even know what America is? When you don't even understand our history, our principles, our founding? How can you be America first if you're peddling Sharia law? Or if you're peddling and mouthpieces and propagandists for Islamist terrorist states? How's that America first? How can you be America first when you sound like a 1930s German anti-Semite or a 1950s racist bigot? How is that possible? Donald Trump has Ronald Reagan's portrait hanging over his left shoulder. He's got all these presidents in his office. And he'll talk to you about it. And he showed me, and he discusses him. And there's Reagan over his left shoulder. And they're going to treat Donald Trump the same way when he leaves office. You know how I know? Because the texts have come out, the things that they've said about Trump before. They despise him. The Carlsons, the Fuenteses, the Kellys, the rest of them, don't get me wrong, they hang on to him, they want to be seen with him, but they despise him. What's this constitutional conservatism? Oh, that's so old guard, that's so old school. And they trash conservative talk radio. And they trash Fox News. And they trash anything they are not, anything they disagree with. They act like it doesn't exist. This is how you get mobs. This is how you get fascists and Marxists. We're supposed to debate the Third Reich and Hitler and who was right and who was wrong. That's a debate? Don't debase yourself and debate that. That's insanity. That's an illness. And these people are blatant about it. They're brazen about it. You had some guy, I honestly forget his name, I really have. A Muslim gentleman who's American, but I think he has Pakistani and Iranian background, and he goes to Qatar, and one of the things he's bragging about to the leadership of Qatar is, I help platform and fund Tucker Carlson. Now, he has since sold his business to Tucker Carlson, I think. And you get another Wall Street guy, apparently on the inner circle, so he thinks he's all muscular and everything else, Alex something or other. You're smearing him. Don't drag this guy into your debate with Tucker. I'm smearing him by linking to what the man said? And how does the sale of it start? He's the one who said it. Don't drag him in. Drag him into what? He's proud of it. He went to Qatar and told them. And then his partner, Carlson's partner, he's over in Qatar too. And so are a number of so-called conservative influencers and so forth. Wow, this place is much different than I ever thought it was. Yeah, because you don't see the million indentured servants and slaves that serve the 300,000 in the population there. You don't see anything. That's okay. Reagan. He defeated the Soviet Union. He pushed communism out of our hemisphere. He pushed communism out of several countries in Africa. Reagan. The economy grew faster and bigger under Reagan than at any time in American history since the Second Industrial Revolution, 100 years before. Reagan. Reagan received the biggest percentage of popular vote of any Republican in history. He received the most electoral college votes of any Republican in history. And he did it twice. Reagan. And they tell you to ignore Reagan. Do the Democrats ignore Franklin Roosevelt? No, they can't stop talking about him. Well, why should we ignore Reagan? Because it's a new day, Mark. There could be policy changes. We have a tremendous, historic, iconic president right now. I've said it over and over again. But that doesn't mean that Reagan was not a great, great president, because he was. So, according to these America Firsters, Reagan was not. The world begins today. Ignore everything that came before, all of it. Forget about history, except when they want to twist history, and they use history to literally embrace genocidal maniacs like Putin, like the Qatar royal family, like Iran's so-called leadership. Then we got to know history, you know. It's an amazing thing. Now, why is this important? Because we're going to get our asses kicked in this midterm election if these people succeed and we fail. You, Mr. and Mrs. America, and me, we've got to succeed. If we are defined by the lowest of low lives, if we are defined by bigots and racists, Christian haters and Jew haters, if we are defined by people who promote Sharia law over Judeo-Christian values on the basis on what this nation was founded, we are going to get our asses kicked. I'm telling you that right now. More when I return. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. You know, we know how to win elections. This is not how we win elections when we have these reprobates, these malcontents, these miscreants who claim that they're the future. They're the future. Well, if they're the future, we're finished. Because to me, most of them are very, very sick and grifters who've accomplished nothing in their lives. Zero. What has Nick Fuentes done for this country? What has Carlson done for this country? I'm quite serious. What has Dave Smith, the anti-Semite comic, done for this country? They haven't done anything. Nothing. Not any major litigation. Never served. Nothing. Zero. They ever support the Tea Party or other conservative movements and liberty movements? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We're coming upon the 250th birthday of the United States, and it has me thinking, what will America look like 250 years from now? My friends at the Heritage Foundation want to know what you think. What policies should America prioritize? What principles should carry us into the decades ahead? As America enters a new golden age, Heritage recognizes that this is the time to take stock and to be intentional about how we shape the future of America. And they can't do it without your input. So please go to heritage.org/LEVIN and let them know what you think is important. Without patriots like you stepping up and speaking up for what you believe in, America as we know it can't survive for another 250 years. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Take the survey on America's future future. This survey takes less than 10 minutes to complete, but it is critical for making sure that the America we pass on to future generations is an America we're proud of. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, the champion of liberty and true conservatism. Call Mark now, 877-381-3811.
Socialism light is not the answer to quote-unquote affordability. In fact, addressing affordability, quote-unquote, is not the answer either. Embracing capitalist solutions to ever-growing big government at the local, state, and federal level is how you create prosperity and growth. Prosperity and growth go together. They create affordability. But even more than that, they create supply. It's very annoying and frustrating for me to listen to people who mimic Mondami, and they look at the victories on those Democrat states and that Democrat city, now a pink city, and regurgitate it. Or they listen to these backbencher pollsters and they regurgitate it. Or Washington, D.C. operators who make millions of dollars advising politicians on how to lose. Affordability, affordability. You create supply and create prosperity. The word is prosperity. And you find ways to do that. That should be the focus. Prosperity. Supply. Creates not only affordability, but inventiveness, productivity, cutting-edge technology. That's the answer. In other words, conservatism, capitalism, socialism light. How do we make sure there's more housing for young people? We've got to take over the market. We've got to build more houses for young people. Excuse me, what? That's not going to create affordability. It's not even going to create housing. These cost overrun government projects. I mean, the federal government, even under the best management, is a disaster. It's a disaster. Obamacare, that's the federal government. Disaster. Massive waste, fraud, and abuse. Ask the Somali community in Minnesota. Well, don't. Just point to it. Disaster. Hundreds of billions of dollars, according to the GAO. The GAO itself, the Government Accountability Office. Every single year. Politicians are incapable of ensuring proper cost mechanisms. Bureaucrats are even worse. They're even worse. You want to create prosperity through growth. That's what the big, beautiful bill is intended to do, by the way. And when it fully kicks in, at some point next year, it will. To some extent, at a minimum. But socialism light can never beat socialism aggressive and doesn't accomplish a damn thing. It doesn't accomplish anything. You know what we used to call this? This being pushed now by the neo-fascists and their ilk. We used to call people like this RINOs. Remember that? Because they sound like liberals. And so these so-called influencers, they now sound not just like liberals, they sound worse. In many cases, they sound like the Marxists. But whatever they sound like doesn't even matter. We will not get to where we want to go. We will not win elections. We will not create prosperity if we go down that road. It won't happen. This is why, rather than discuss the substance of whatever it is that they're proposing, because they have no coherent philosophy other than to pick a little bit of this and a little bit of that and to attack and attack and attack, because they do not look at the past. They do not learn from the past. They do not look at the great minds. They rewrite history. They lie about economics. And so they're stuck. And they lash out. They should pay a little bit more attention to Milton Friedman and to Mises and Hayek and to Adam Smith and to Bastiat. They should pay a little bit more attention to Locke and Montesquieu and Burke and to the founders. They should pay a little bit more attention to the massive economic and electoral successes of President Reagan and his great accomplishments. And they should even listen to President Trump a little bit more carefully about his ideas and proposals. But they don't. It's interesting, you know, these people of whom I have been speaking, they trash Trump regularly in their texts when they become available, in their emails, in their posts. Marjorie Taylor Greene, look at her. She's a mess. She doesn't know what she stands for. She's a walking billboard. She's a walking bumper sticker. I stand for the people. I've always stood for the people. Oh, shut up, you idiot. You don't even know what you stand for. Both of your feet are firmly planted in the air. Or the others. Look at Bannon. Bannon's taken 10 sides of the same issue. Course of 12 years. Course of 12 months. Same with his buddy, Carlson. Look at this slob Alex Jones. A bigger dummy doesn't exist. And I can go down the list. There's a reason why the Democrat Party media keep pushing these people out there. They love them. They love them. Because they know, by promoting them, they try to brand tens of millions of people, many of whom don't even know who they are. But you, Mr. and Mrs. America, they try to taint you with these people that you don't even know, and most of you, if you know them, you despise them. Or you're thinking about them from 5 years ago, whereas today they've absolutely lost their marbles. It's the truth. This guy, Mark Kelly, this Democrat senator from Arizona, and I want to give a hat tip to Roger Stone. I hadn't seen this before, but now I've dug a little bit more deeply. That's right, Roger Stone. I don't know Roger Stone, but I like Roger Stone. I don't know him. Maybe we've talked now and then is all I can remember, but that's it. But he pointed this out. Mark Kelly telling our troops to defy the president. He can't even say what order he's talking about. He's the most outspoken of the bunch. Doubles down, triples down on it. That Donald Trump really keeps going after the Afghani illegal immigrants in the country because he doesn't want brown people here. That's the kind of mind this Mark Kelly has, which is none whatsoever. What happened? How did he become an astronaut? That's what I want to know. I'm quite serious. I watched the guy, listened to the guy. Sounds like an idiot. Idiot. But Fox News reported about a year ago, former astronaut Senator Mark Kelly started spy balloon company funded by Communist China. Oh, do tell us. Former Navy captain, former astronaut, represents Arizona in the U.S. Senate since 2020. Before becoming a senator, was not only an astronaut, he also co-founded a company that specializes in spy balloons, which was funded in part by a venture capitalist in China that would be communist China, with close ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Everything that happens in China has close ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Kelly's reportedly in the short list of running mate contenders this is last year for VP, co-founded in Tucson, Arizona, Worldview in 2012, with a vision to provide space tourism using stratospheric balloons. And while Kelly's company started out with a focus on space tourism via balloons, now how stupid is that? You're going to use a balloon for space tourism, Mr. Producer? A balloon? The vision evolved with the maturing of the company's technology. As we matured our technology, we recognized an opportunity for immediate use cases for our technology through remote sensing services to defense, science, damn website here, scientific and commercial customers. Today, our primary business remains providing remote sensing service to the U.S. Department of Defense and our allies by way of intel, surveillance, and renaissance capabilities, as well as servicing scientific organizations like NASA, NOAA, others, to better understand Earth from the unique atmospheric layer of stratosphere. Boy, is that more bullcrap or what? Axios report. Axios is like the Al Jazeera of America. Have you noticed that? They run stories endlessly that undermine our country, undermine the state of Israel, same anonymous sources over and over again. The guy who writes it is an Israeli, Barak Ravid, complete slimeball, pig. Axios reported that shortly after Worldview was started, it received venture capital from Tencent. Tencent is one of China's largest corporations, founded in 1998 by Pony Ma Yabadabadu. And last year, he was listed as Forbes as the fourth richest man in China. Collected a trove of data, the Wall Street Journal reported, did that company, over the years from its mobile app WeChat, and it goes on and on and on. So it's a communist operation. And this idiot, former astronaut, former Navy captain, with the video, 6 members of Congress did this video who served either in intelligence or the military. You have to want to do it. It's not like, I don't really want to do it. No, you're excited about it. You're really motivated to do it, to tell the troops, to defy the president. If you have any order you don't agree with, man, defy the president. In which order? I don't know. Whatever. Whatever. Seems to me he's the guy that has to answer questions, and not by the phony media. Wouldn't it be nice if he had answered questions under oath, penalty of perjury? But, Congress doesn't work that way. It doesn't do that to its own members. It seems to me there's a lot to answer for, a hell of a lot more than Pete Hegseth. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. For decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. It's interesting, ladies and gentlemen. This audience is growing. Our affiliate list is growing. This format, and we're on many formats and platforms here, many. Including they run this as a podcast, and we stream it. We're on apps. We're on the great Sirius XM satellite. We're on YouTube. Where else are we? We're everywhere, Rich. Where the hell else are we? We're all over the world, actually. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you people, oh, look at this. People underestimate you. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing. You can basically listen to this program any way you want, wherever you want, and any time you want. And we're going to expand it even more. Again, that will be one of the announcements I make after the first of the year or sometime in the middle of January, something like that. We're going to have yet another platform. We've only just begun. We've only just begun. There's just too much at stake. The president had his 9th cabinet meeting today, 9th. In what is it, 8 or 9 months? It's remarkable. And what's remarkable about it is he goes around to each cabinet member who speaks. The press is there. You can watch like you're sitting in on the cabinet meeting. I don't know. That's never happened before, ever. And it takes an hour, hour and a half. The president also speaks, talks about what he wants to say, and then they take questions. It's clearly the most open and democratic administration in modern American history. It simply is. And then it follows an administration that was in complete cover-up mode all the time. All the time, which is crazy. And that cabinet is really a very good cabinet in my view, and they had a lot of good things to say. I also want to thank, as we draw to the end of this hour, but we have a powerful second hour coming and third. I want to thank the President and the White House for inviting us to their Hanukkah party, which will be in a week or two. Excuse me, cholera. I also want to thank the Vice President who invited us to his Hanukkah party at his residence. Now, it's not a small group, but nonetheless, it's very nice of them. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. President Trump was really on his game today, as usual. He was absolutely outstanding. And what we love about him, among other things, is he sees things as he sees them, and he sees them right. What's gone on with these Somali immigrants, that community in particular, is outrageous. Especially Minneapolis. Especially Minneapolis. And here he is today at the cabinet meeting. Cut one, go.
No, I think that Waltz is a grossly incompetent man. There's something wrong with him, okay? There's something wrong with him. And when you look at what he's done with Somalia, which is barely a country, you know, they have no anything. They just run around killing each other. There's no structure. And when I see somebody like Ilhan Omar, who I don't know at all, but I always watch her for years. I've watched her complain about our Constitution, how she's being treated badly. Our Constitution, the United States of America, is a bad place. It hates everybody, hates Jewish people, hates everybody. And I think she's an incompetent person. She's a real terrible person. But when I watch what is happening in Minnesota, the land of 1,000 lakes, or however many lakes they have, they got a lot of lakes, but this beautiful place, and I see these people ripping it off, and now I'm understanding, and you're going to look at, I hear they ripped off Somalians, ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you, okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries, too.
Cut to, go.
You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain and do nothing but we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it.
Mm-hmm. And then Secretary Kristi Noem was doing a hell of a job. Go, 3.
You know, you told me to look into Minnesota and their fraud on visas and their programs. 50% of them are fraudulent, which means that wacko Governor Walz either is an idiot or he did it on purpose. And I think he's both, sir. He brought people in there illegally that never should have been in this country, said they were somebody that they're not. They said they were married to somebody who was their brother or somebody else. Fraudulent visa applications, signed up for government programs, took hundreds of billions of dollars from the taxpayers.
Stop. Just saying that 50% of the visas are fraudulent. 50%. Go ahead.
And we're going to get our money back. And we're going to, this next year, make sure that we only put people in leadership positions in this country that love this country and have its back.
Multi-billion-dollar fraud during the pandemic and abusing autistic children and all the rest of it. And this governor was warned about it. There were whistleblowers telling him about it, and he blew them off because they want to vote. Reminds me of this guy, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. Might as well be Philadelphia. And his association with these radical, Hamas-supporting imams and so forth. It's outrageous. It's disgusting. We're in Michigan, Dearbornistan. Have the Democrats bend over backwards? Well, you literally have people talking about imposing Sharia law on the nation. This is no joke, America. While we have these neo-fascists pushing their agenda, trashing our faith and our belief system, the Judeo-Christian belief system. And by the way, Zuhdi Jasser-type Muslims who are very patriotic Americans who have fought for this country, but we're not talking about them, are we? If that were the case, we wouldn't have a problem. We're talking about the Islamists and the jihadis. Yes. And then we have the neo-Nazis and the neo-fascists. They're all on the same page. There's a great piece in the New York Post. See here if I can get it correct on this computer here. By Rich Lowry. Ungrateful Ilhan Omar and the Somali scammers are the immigrants we do not want. Is it too much to ask for immigrants who love America and its system of government That's a question President Trump has been asking with an especially high level of vitriol in the wake of the horrific shooting of members of the National Guard in Washington the day before Thanksgiving. In a corker of a Truth Social post announcing a permanent pause in immigration from the third world countries, Trump went after Minnesota area Representative Ilhan Omar, and for good reason. Not according to this genius Mark Kelly, who did business with the Communist Chinese government. No. According to him, it's because she's brown. What a dumbass. Let's just be honest. Lowry writes, Omar stands for everything we shouldn't want an immigrant to be. Ungrateful, hostile to the American system as such, perhaps not above perpetuating immigration fraud. Maybe the next time Omar is a refugee from a war-torn, desperately poor African country looking for a safe haven in the West, she should try Canada or Australia. After fleeing the civil war in Somalia, Omar was granted asylum in the United States in the 1990s. And she lived for a time in one of the most desirable suburban counties in the country, Arlington, Virginia, outside Washington, D.C., before settling in Minneapolis. In the course of her successful life, so far from Mogadishu, in a country characterized by its peace, prosperity, and opportunity, our country, one would have thought she'd have steadily accumulated a debt of gratitude. Most heritage Americans, after all, never become members of Congress or enjoy a net worth as high as $30 million. Omar's husband has a venture capital firm. $30 million. But no, quite the opposite. In Omar's version, a Washington Post profile noted a few years ago, America wasn't the big-hearted country that saved her from a brutal war and a bleak refugee camp. It wasn't a meritocracy that helped her attend college or vaulted her into Congress. No. Instead, it was the country that had failed to live up to its founding ideals, a place that had disappointed her and so many immigrants, refugees, and minorities like her. It's not just that she came here with nothing, and now is a person with prestige in certain circles and resources. She may well have gotten away with a scheme years ago to marry her brother for fraudulent purposes. She hotly denies that the man she briefly married was her brother, but has never managed to definitively rebut the charges, relying instead on accusations of racism to scare away critics. Is this a great country, she must secretly think occasionally, despite herself, or what? The same thought may have occurred to these members of the Somali diaspora in Minnesota who engaged in gigantic grift of the state social services funds. Prosecutors believe that more than $1 billion has been stolen in a variety of plots. The perpetrators stole from programs intended to provide meals to hungry children during the pandemic, services to the homeless, and therapy for autistic children. At least these members of the Somali diaspora must have been grateful for the generosity and credulousness of a Minnesota welfare state that couldn't be bothered to keep fraudsters from stealing from the taxpayers on an epic scale. Obviously, native-born Americans commit graft, too, but the Minnesota crimes are especially galling, coming from a group of people who we did a favor to allow in the United States in the first place. It's one thing to look a gift horse in the mouth. It's another to steal the incisors and molars when you think no one is looking. It should go without saying that these crimes don't implicate law-abiding Somali Americans, and not all Somali immigrants share Ilhan Omar's grievances, although many of them repeatedly show the poor judgment of electing her to Congress. So the crux of the matter is that U.S. immigration policy should be about serving our national interest rather than the interest of immigrants. We should select as carefully as possible newcomers who want to embrace America and are willing and able to thrive in an adopted homeland that they love. But you see, that's all been broomed away. It's broomed away because for the Democrats, it has nothing to do with whether or not you will be a patriotic American, have allegiance to America, will assimilate into our culture. It's whether or not you will vote Democrat, whether you'll become part of the welfare state. The Democrat agenda is completely contrary to the American agenda. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, in all the time I've been supporting Pure Talk, my wireless company, I can honestly say I've never seen an offer like this from them before. Listen to this. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, and unlimited data with a 30 gig hotspot. Just $29.95 a month for life. Friends, this is Pure Talk's top tier plan, normally $65 a month. Now through December 7th, that's it. Just $29.95 a month. You're saving over 50% a month every month for life. Yes, that's on their crazy fast 5G network. But this offer is extremely short-lived. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's Levin for Pure Talk's best unlimited plan. Just $29.95 a month for life. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Keep your phone, keep your number, and start saving with unlimited for life for just $29.95 a month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my wireless company, Pure Talk. Taxes and fees not included. Some restrictions apply. See puretalk.com for details. Offer ends December 7, 2025. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to upset you, regardless of your race, background, male, female. There's a guy named Wajahat Ali. He's a columnist for the Daily Bestiality, a.k.a. the Daily Beast. And this is what feeds into these white supremacists. This is what feeds into little Adolf and others. That is this racism against white people. Racism is racism, whether it's against black people, brown people, yellow people, red people, whoever they. But it's also racism when minorities attack white people because of their race. Now, in the 1960s, you had people who said it's impossible to be racist against whites because they're in the majority. It doesn't matter if they're in the majority. It matters what you say about people based on their skin color or their ethnicity. And so you have at the Daily Beast a columnist who I would argue is a bigot. My opinion based on what he says. Barack Obama used to say that by 2044, I can do it from memory, he said it so often, America will be a majority-minority country, as he talked about immigration. And I used to say, why is that your objective? Why is that the point of your immigration policy? The point of your immigration policy is to make America majority-minority? What's that all about? And that's what little Adolf heard me say, I'm sure. Little Adolf went, hey, I never thought of that. And then he turns it into, being supportive of Hitler and Stalin because he's mentally ill, in my humble opinion. Just my opinion. But here's Wajahat Ali. How is he any different from little Adolf Fuentes when you listen to him? He's smearing and attacking different people based on their race. I hope you bleeped out the proper words here, Mr. Producer, the improper words. Cut 5, go.
You have lost. You lost. The mistake that you made is you let us in the first place. That's the thing with brown people. I'm going to say this as a brown person. There's a lot of us. Like a lot. There's like 1.2 billion in India. There's more than 200 million in Pakistan. There's like 170 million in Bangladesh. Those are just the people there. I'm even talking about the folks who are expats or immigrants. There's a bunch of us. And we breed. We're a breeding people. And the problem is you let us in 1965. There were a few of us beforehand. But once you let one of us in, you know what happens with brown folks? Our grandmother comes, our grandfather comes, our uncle comes, our aunt comes, our cousin comes, our second cousin comes, our third cousin comes. Then we have kids, a bunch of kids. And then guess what? Some white women, the Western civilization women, the pure women, the American women, quote unquote, the Rust Belt women, the real women, they like some of us brown folks. We don't take them. They come to us. So we're embedded. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. I've traveled this country. I'm going to speak as a brown person. Brown people are everywhere. There will be a Patel Motel or there will be a Desi restaurant everywhere. I want you to realize this. You have lost. Your story filled with misery. It's filled with bland chicken. It's filled with terrible, terrible dry ass meat. Your music sucks. All your culture sucks. Nobody. That's why the kids listen to black people and their music. That's why the kids love Latinos. Your parties suck because they're monochromatic. Our parties have better food, better music, better looking women.
This guy's a columnist for the Daily Bestiality, a.k.a. the Daily Beast. Does he sound like a racist to you, Mr. Producer? Sounds like one to me. Now, I don't know who else has listened to this. It was sent to me, and I watched it from last week. There's no great outcry about this guy. Nothing. But he sounds like a Nick Fuentes in many respects. Sounds that way to me. Really disgusting. A disgusting reprobate. Wajahat Ali, if that is your name. You're disgusting. You're a punk. You're a moron. And you're not alone. There's many people like this who speak like this. And by the way, they're not all brown and black. They're white people who speak like this about white people too. Now, you don't put down people because of their skin color, because of their race, whether they're white or black or brown or yellow or red or albino or whatever they are. That's certainly my view. This is the dehumanization of people. I use this word a lot because a lot of it's going on. You're now dehumanizing tens of millions of people in a country that is majority, quote-unquote, Caucasian. And I don't even know what that means, quite frankly. There's different shades of white. You see how weird this gets? But the government pushed this early on. First through slavery, and then through the census. You got to fit in a category. Wow, yeah, what are you? Asian? You're this? You're white? You're Jew? What are you? What the hell are you there? Why? Why? So they can discriminate. That's why. For or against people, depending on what era we're in. Well, Wajahat Ali, the things he said here are evil. In my humble opinion, he's an evil reprobate, a buffoon. But this is what you get on the left. I'll be right back. You know, in all the time I've been supporting Pure Talk, my wireless company, I can honestly say I've never seen an offer like this from them before. Listen to this. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, and unlimited data with a 30 gig hotspot. Just $29.95 a month for life. Friends, this is Pure Talk's top-tier plan, normally $65 a month. Now through December 7th, that's it. Just $29.95 a month. You're saving over 50% a month every month for life. Yes, that's on their crazy fast 5G network. But this offer is extremely short-lived. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's Levin for Pure Talk's best unlimited plan. Just $29.95 a month for life. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Keep your phone, keep your number, and start saving with unlimited for life for just $29.95 a month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my wireless company, Pure Talk. Taxes and fees not included. Some restrictions apply. See puretalk.com for details. Offer ends December 7, 2025.
The establishment's worst nightmare. Mark Levin. Call in now. 877-381-3811.
There we go. A lot of nasty people out there, no? They are. And they don't represent us. It's race activity that they talk about and so forth, racism. It's not you and me. Bigotry, that's not you and me. We're going to get creamed in elections if this continues. Now, I believe this guy Ali. I've told you about immigration and the purpose of immigration for decades now. Remember when I used to write over at National Review from time to time as a contributing editor? I wrote a fairly significant piece on immigration. This is decades ago. And I was criticized by, of course, the Wall Street Journal editorial page that took the position of open borders. Something it doesn't ever repeat, but it ought to. It ought to remind us of where they stood. And I was called a restrictionist. And I said, yes, I'm a restrictionist. All laws are about restriction of some sort or another. Criminal activity, immoral activity, inappropriate or untoward activity. And illegal immigration is all that. So yes, I'm a restrictionist. And then, of course, we led the battle. We, here, us, you and me, against the Gang of Eight and what they were trying to perpetrate. Backdoor amnesty, and we said no. We've been leading this battle ever since. Others have finally joined in the battle, but they were always afraid. It's like the battle against the Islamists. People are now involved in that battle. People were not always involved in that battle. They were afraid. They were afraid to bring it up. I can go way back to the point where we went after the Republican establishment, the Mitch McConnells and so forth, early on. And my friends at National Review thought that was quite offensive. What do you mean by establishment and all? This whole phrase, constitutional conservative, has been bouncing around out there, but that's the movement. It's the Constitution that protects us if we can keep it, as Benjamin Franklin famously said. And as the great Justice Antonin Scalia said, I guess we shouldn't pay attention to him either, right, Mr. Producer? I mean, he's gone, so why even bother, as they say? But I do bother a lot. Been a lot of great minds, patriots, theoreticians, and so forth, philosophers who came before our generation, long before our generation. And just because they've passed doesn't mean we ignore them. How stupid is that? But as he made the point, the reason our Constitution is brilliant is because it's power-checking power. Now, he's not the first to say it, just the most articulate in my view. Power-checking power. That's crucially important. Affordability. I told you before, the real issue is not as they define it, affordability. The real issue is growth and prosperity. That creates more than affordability. It creates affordability. It creates plentiful products and needs, but progress, new medicines, new technologies, the improvement of the human condition. That's the point. That's the point. So it's more than quote-unquote affordability. Of course, Marxist regimes are unaffordable. The problem there, as I said before, is availability. The president was asked about this at his cabinet meeting today, this affordability issue. Here's what he said. Cut 6, go.
More Americans are working today than at any time in the history of our country. I mean, these are the facts we have to get out. And, you know, there's this fake narrative that the Democrats talk about, affordability. They just say the word. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. They just say it. Affordability. I inherited the worst inflation in history. There was no affordability. Nobody could afford anything. Mm-hmm. The prices were massively high. Do you remember when we took over eggs? You did a great job on that, Madam Secretary. Agriculture, Brooke. Eggs were 4 or 5 times higher than they had ever been. They said don't order eggs for Easter at the White House. And we ended up doing it, and we got the egg prices way down, lower than what they were before. But the word affordability is a con job by the Democrats.
Absolutely. But you have to figure out how to confront it and how to redefine the issue, the real issues that are related to that. To give you an example, let's take a look at gas prices. Nick Arama over at Red State. One of the most important questions when it comes to prices is the price of gasoline. When that drops, it tends to help a lot of other things come down. The good news is it's coming down. Even CNN is reporting it. For the first time in 4.5 years, gas prices are averaging $3 a gallon nationally. That's CNN, noting prices had hit their lowest since 2021. Even more significantly, 20 states are averaging below $2.75 a gallon. I can verify this is true in Texas. The price is currently $2.45. Oil prices have dropped from $81 3 years ago under Joe Biden, that's a barrel, to now $59 under President Donald Trump. His production is at all-time highs, U.S. production is, plus OPEC is producing more as well. The report notes the positive aspects of Trump's drill baby drill approach, and the prices dropped even lower than what they reported as production has increased. A stunning development. U.S. crude oil, in world news, their production hits a record 13.8 million barrels per day under American President Trump's policies, slashing gas prices below $3 in a staggering 33 American states for the first time since 2021. U.S. crude oil output rose 44,000 barrels a day during the month to record 13.84 million barrels per day, according to EIA data. Oil output in New Mexico, the second largest oil-producing state, I hadn't known that, hit a record 2.351 million, while output from the federal offshore Gulf region rose to 1.983 million. Just in September, the highest since February 2020. GasBuddy is even now putting the national average at $2.95 a gallon and believes there will be continued downward pressure. He says a few dozen stations are already offering gas under $2 per gallon. We could see a number grow as we move further into the holiday season. It couldn't come at a better time for Americans, with relief arriving just in time for the holiday kickoff. Mark Wayne Mullins, senator from Oklahoma, confirmed it was $1.95 a gallon in Midwest City, Oklahoma. And he's not kidding. If your gas is well over $3, look at what the state gas taxes are. Excuse me. That's always very, very important. The state gas taxes. The states with the highest average prices: California, $4.51 a gallon. Hawaii, $4.35 a gallon. Washington, $4.09 a gallon, according to GasBuddy. Not coincidentally, Democrat states, of course, they have very high gasoline taxes. Vote out your Democrats and you'll do better. So that's the good news going into the future, and likely good news for influencing other prices as well, since so many things include the price of transportation costs. That's going to help with holiday traveling as well. So you have gasoline prices coming down. You're going to have the tax cuts really kicking in next year. And so next year should look a lot better. And if the Fed will reduce interest rates by another half point or 3/4 of a point, you're going to see the housing market turn around too. So there's a lot of things that are being done that take time to resonate, that are in fact in the works. And just remember, it's the Democrats that drove up the price of gasoline, as the president says, the highest inflation rate in modern American history. They created that. They're the ones that took so much land out of agriculture production, so much land out of mine production, so much land out of energy production. And Donald Trump has had to reverse all of that. And, you know, it's like a big aircraft carrier. It takes time to move it around. What's it been, 9 months, 10 months, something like that? And so now it's kind of ironic in a sickening way. It's the Democrats saying, what about affordability? When all the elements that are necessary to create growth and prosperity, virtually all of them, we're being so overly regulated and taxed, making it impossible to have that growth and prosperity. Our incomes are up. The effective income for the average income earner is up. The net is up. But, you know, there's other things that have to happen, and that are, I believe, will happen as a result of what the president has done and the Republicans have done. Cut 8, Mr. Producer. The president further today at the cabinet meeting. Go.
We're now at about $2.50 a gallon. We're going to be, I think, at $2 a gallon. We could even crack that at some point. I'd love to do it. And we could do it more easily if we weren't building up the strategic national reserves, which Biden emptied out before the election so that he could try and get elected, meaning he started it, then he got thrown out of the race. Then she took over and she kept it going, and they emptied out these strategic national reserves, which are really meant for something else. They're not meant to keep people happy with their gasoline price. They're meant for war. They're meant for problems, big problems. He emptied it out, and then she continued it during the process of trying to get elected. Didn't work out too well for him. and they virtually brought it down to the lowest level, I believe, in history. And it didn't have much of an impact because the prices were very high. But our prices now for energy, but for gasoline, are really low. Electricity's coming down. And when that comes down, everything comes down.
Yep. So we'll see how that goes. But you know what? When prices do come down and the economy grows even more, the economy grew very well last quarter, by the way, and jobs are created, they'll attack him on some phony scandal that they're trying to create, and that's what they always do. They move from one to the other. What happened to Epstein? What happened to the Epstein case? How come all the influencers and podcasters aren't talking about Epstein? How come all the backbencher pollsters aren't talking about Epstein? How come MAGA hasn't imploded as a result of Epstein? How come they don't talk about Epstein anymore, America? Because they're frauds and phonies, and you should really be able at this point to discern who is what, who's playing you, and who's telling you the truth. Oh, I remember Carlson saying, what's Levin trying to hide with the Epstein? I'm not trying to hide anything. It's a phony issue, as applies to Donald Trump. It was always a phony issue, and that's what I mean by them stabbing him in the back. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, in all the time I've been supporting Pure Talk, my wireless company, I can honestly say I've never seen an offer like this from them before. Listen to this. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, and unlimited data with a 30-gig hotspot. Just $29.95 a month for life. Friends, this is Pure Talk's top-tier plan, normally $65 a month. Now through December 7th, that's it. Just $29.95 a month. You're saving over 50% a month every month for life. Yes, that's on their crazy fast 5G network. But this offer is extremely short-lived. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's Levin for Pure Talk's best unlimited plan. Just $29.95 a month for life. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Keep your phone, keep your number, and start saving with unlimited for life for just $29.95 a month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my wireless company, Pure Talk. Taxes and fees not included. Some restrictions apply. See puretalk.com for details. Offer ends December 7, 2025. Give you a taste for the gas taxes by state. Imagine subtracting that from what you pay for a gallon of gasoline. Those numbers I gave you earlier. Do not subtract out the gasoline tax. The highest in the country, you wouldn't be surprised, is California. Those of you who live in California are paying almost 71 cents per gallon in a gas tax. 71 cents. The second worst is Illinois. Let's see here. Illinois, you're paying over 66 cents a gallon. These are all blue states, of course. Over 66 cents a gallon in Illinois. Let's see which one's the third. I've got to look them up in a strange way here. Hey. Well, the fifth is Indiana, a Republican state, 54 cents a gallon. The fourth, Pennsylvania, almost 59 cents a gallon. This is crazy. Washington State is the third, almost 60 cents a gallon. I already told you the fourth, and it goes like that. The sixth is Michigan, over 48 cents a gallon. The seventh, Maryland, over 46 cents a gallon. It's enormous numbers. The eighth is New Jersey, almost 45 cents a gallon. So when you look, let's say, you're filling up your car and, you're putting $3.49 in. Well, 49 cents of that is to the state. It's crazy. The lowest, to nobody's surprise, is Alaska. Arizona is one of the lowest, less than 2 cents a gallon. Think about that. Less than 2 cents a gallon. Other ones that are relatively low, you got Nevada, that's about 23 cents a gallon, comparatively. New Mexico, an oil producer, is less than 2 cents a gallon. North Dakota's a little over 2 cents a gallon. South Carolina, it's almost 3 cents a gallon. South Dakota is 3 cents a gallon. Utah is about 4 cents a gallon. You get the drift. Wyoming's about 2.5 cents a gallon. West Virginia's about 3.6 cents a gallon. But can you imagine, Mr. Producer? 71 cents a gallon in taxes. Can you imagine? And by the way, I made a mistake on West Virginia. It's 35 cents a gallon. Sorry. And in Wyoming, it's 24 cents a gallon. District of Columbia is 35 cents a gallon. And then you've got, let me just see here. Any more states? There's a lot more states. One of the lower ones is Mississippi, 21 cents a gallon. And Maine is 31 cents a gallon. Kansas is 25 cents a gallon. Iowa, 30 cents a gallon. But the really big one is California. And this guy, Newsom, wants to be the president of the United States. Can you imagine that? Everything he does is crap. Everything he does. He can't even get water to a fire hydrant. Now, we've been doing that for over 100 years, you know, getting water to a fire hydrant. But he can't pull that off. So he's obviously presidential material when it comes to the Democrats. He's a fraud, a phony, and a fool. The Power Hour, Hour 3 is next. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Yes, indeedy. I don't see. Let me see this, ladies and gentlemen. According to 5 U.S. officials, reports the New York Slimes, who spoke separately and on condition of anonymity, to discuss a sensitive matter that is under investigation. Mr. Hegseth, a.k.a. Secretary of War, ahead of the September 2 attack on one of those Venezuelan drug boats, ordered a strike that would kill the people on the boat and destroy the vessel and its purported cargo of drugs. But each of the 5 officials said Mr. Hegseth's directive did not specifically address what should happen if a first missile turned out not to fully accomplish all the things. And the officials said his order was not a response to surveillance footage showing that at least 2 people on the boat survived the first blast. Now, they're responding to to the Washington Compost, which had this big story that basically said Hegseth ordered a second hit to kill 2 people who were in the water. Admiral Bradley ordered the initial missile strike and then several follow-up strikes that killed the initial survivors and sank the disabled boat. As that operation unfolded, they said Mr. Hegseth did not give any further orders. Now, we know that's true. Why? Because after the first strike, he left to do other business. This went on for an hour or 2 hours. Here's what he had to say today. Cut 10, go.
So you didn't see any survivors, to be clear, after that first strike? I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes. about the judgment that they made. I wrote a whole book on this topic because of what politicians and the press does to warfighters. President Trump has empowered commanders to do what is necessary, which is dark and difficult things in the dead of night on behalf of the American people. We support them, and we will stop the poisoning of the American people.
Mm-hmm. So he didn't even see the second hit, let alone order it. And he said the admiral hit it because he wanted to sink the ship, and they backed the admiral. Now, why is this controversial? It's not. We actually have former federal prosecutors and others saying, if this is true, it's a war crime. We have this guy Tillis, who's really in a bad way because he chose not to run again because he would have lost, and Trump was opposed to him for a number of reasons. Good reasons. He's out there, yes, if this is true, it's very troubling. Then you have the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, I believe. The guy's name is Wicker from Mississippi. He's no conservative. He's a RINO. He's another one. He's out there saying, well, if this is true. What do you mean if this is true? It's not true. And even the New York Times just fact-checked the Washington Post and said they asked 5 separate senior officials. Hegseth never said kill all the people. He never ordered the second strike. He didn't do any of that stuff. But they don't care. The president has every constitutional and legal basis for hitting these boats and for going further should he choose to. It's his decision, whether he thinks it's wise or not, to determine how much input he wants from Congress. I saw somebody write today that he must get input from Congress. I don't know. See, this is the problem with individuals who don't look at the history of war or history, period. They just think they know everything based on today. And Hegseth spoke about, we've only just begun with these narco-terrorists. Cut 11, go.
And then it's getting after and going after narco-terrorists and designated terrorist organizations in our own hemisphere. As I've said, and I'll say again, we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco-terrorists at the bottom of the ocean because they've been poisoning the American people. And Joe Biden tried to approach it with kid gloves and allowed them to come across the border. Cartels take over community, 20 million people, hundreds of thousands of Americans poisoned. And President Trump said, no, we're taking the gloves off. We're taking the fight to these designated terror organizations. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we're stopping the drugs. We're striking the boats. We're defeating narco-terrorists. And we're standing...
And you may say one thing, that drugs coming in through the sea by sea are down 91%. And I don't know who the 9% is.
I'm not sure either, sir.
But down 91% by sea.
We've had a bit of a pause because it's hard to find boats to strike right now. Which is the entire point, right? Deterrence has to matter, not arrest and hand over and then do it again, the rinse and repeat approach of previous administrations. This is meant to get after that approach.
Now, why is this controversial? Is it controversial to you, Mr. and Mrs. America? It's not controversial to me. Now, where are all the isolationists? Shouldn't they be whining on and on about interventionism? You see, Mr. Producer, are the Jews going to drag us into a war with Venezuela now? Is that what Israel and Netanyahu are going to do? These people are so sickening. Bigoted frauds and freaks. But why aren't they complaining about we're going to get into a war? Where's Carlson talking about we're going to have World War III here because, after all, the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians, they back Venezuela. What about World War III? And Trump's talking about sending in troops, if necessary. What about that? Over 30% of the U.S. naval fleet is off the coast of Venezuela. What then? You haven't heard a damn thing from these people, have you, America? Nothing. Nothing. President Trump has never been an isolationist. That's them. That's not him. And yet, they're only isolationists when it comes to certain things. They love their Putin. They love their Hamas. They love their Qatar. They love their Saudi Arabia. Yes. They despise Israel. They despise Ukraine. They despise our own country. But it's very interesting here. They haven't said peep Not a word. We're going to get into a senseless war. In Venezuela. Yes. Trump has betrayed MAGA yet again. Right, Marjorie? Right, Marjorie? No, this is the Trump doctrine. Peace through strength. This is how it works. Now, then we have Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is a dead politician walking, in the sense that I think he will be primaried and he will be defeated. I don't much care, because he's been a bleeding hemorrhoid on the body politics since he entered politics right after graduating from law school at Harvard. It's the only job he's ever had. Now, he goes after Pete Hegseth. You know, it's amazing. They go after Pete Hegseth. They've always gone after Hegseth. They hate Hegseth because he's effective. He's a very good Secretary of Defense. He's doing very good things. And he's working on behalf of the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States. Compare him to Austin. Oh, my God. Or any of these guys. He's got energy. He's got vitality. He's got charisma. He's a good leader. He's smart as hell. So they go after his character, of course. And by the way, the word is out. I heard it elsewhere, too, but Laura Loomer's done a long piece on this, too. But I've heard about it, that this guy, I think his name's Driscoll, the Secretary of the Army, would love nothing more than to knock off Hegseth and to become the Secretary of Defense, of War. We'll see how that plays out. We'll keep an eye on that. Here's Chuck Schumer on CNN yesterday. Cut 12, go.
Well, we hope that we can bring before the committees, bipartisan, as you said, Senator Wicker has been very much involved here, and get the top military people to
They love it when our guys throw in with them and start questioning the patriots and in defense of the enemy. It really is sickening what Wicker has done here, in my humble opinion. I would say that to our friends in Mississippi. We're heard all over the state. The only time you hear from this guy is when, oh, look at this. He's bipartisan trashing one of our guys. Go ahead.
And we hope that they will release the tapes. You know, Hegseth is hiding something here, and he's known to be...
This guy, always with the Houdini act. First Trump term, Trump's hiding something, we need a special prosecutor. Everybody's hiding something. Of course, it's Schumer. He's the sleazeball of sleazeballs. Go ahead.
He said that the Washington Post story had no validity, and today the White House directly contradicted him.
Excuse me, dumb whatever. The New York Times just contradicted the Post, and we just heard on the record at the president's cabinet meeting, Hegseth say exactly what he said. Folks, this is a non-issue. There's nothing here. Epstein, as it relates to Trump, is a non-issue. Of course, what Epstein did is disgusting and horrendous. Please don't get me wrong. I'm saying Trump didn't do any of that stuff. And they tried to tie that around him. Russia collusion, they tried to tie that around him. Tax cheat, they tried to tie that around him, and on and on. And every time these phony podcasters and influencers, they either fall for it or they exploit it. These second-rate pollsters, same damn thing. You better watch out, MAGA's turning on you. What's happening is they're turning the country against the president. They're undermining the president of the United States while they pretend to be MAGA. They're not MAGA. They're maggots. That's what they are. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Dan Crenshaw is a war hero. He lost sight in one eye, may have actually lost that eye, and he's got very poor sight in another eye. And he's a combat veteran. And the reprobates love to hate this guy. They just trash him all the time. Now, I can't watch it all the time, but from time to time I come across it, I defend this man. You got people who've never lifted a finger on behalf of this country. So they disagree with this man from time to time, and then they try and trash him, trash his record, call him a warmonger. This is a man who served his country and almost died. I've had it. I've had it with these Lilliputians, these nobodies, with their big mouths. And he says something that I happen to agree with. These narco drug pushers killing Americans, they're the enemy. They're the enemy. Every bit as much as an enemy as a ground force invading our country. Let me ask you a question. If Venezuela gave biochemical, I guess, what do you call them? Poisons? Or just gave poisons to, say, Mexico or Mexican drug cartels to poison our water system, would that be an act of war? Or should we try and capture the people and bring them into a court of law? It's an act of war because it's not some private party acting criminally out of Venezuela. It's the government of Venezuela. It's the government of Venezuela committing not just criminal acts, but acts of war, national security acts against our country. What if they released some airborne poisons and chemicals into the atmosphere above our country? We got to wait to capture the people involved in it? The head of the government, Maduro? Or do we take out that government? Of course we take out that government. This isn't just Mark's opinion. Noriega, I told you about that the other day. Selling drugs, probably less than what Maduro's doing. The lawyers are not in charge of this country. Well, they may be, but they're not supposed to be. I can tell you as a lawyer, obviously there are laws that apply. But the overriding law is the Constitution and the defense of the country and the lives of American citizens. This isn't some case in the Southern District of New York or the Eastern District of Virginia. This is an act of war when you send killer drugs into our country for the purpose of funding a narco police state. Not just making money, to fund an entire regime, a government. And they are in the cahoots with communist China and Russia and Iran, seeking to do grave damage to our country. Those are acts of war. I just wish, it's amazing, I think about that. Put it in some context. They go after Donald Trump. They want to throw him in prison for taking documents, which, of course, he had every right to take. I don't need to get into the law and the Constitution on that, but just think about that. Throw him in prison. But when it comes to another government in another country trying to kill our citizens, succeeding in many cases, listen to how they talk. It's just disgusting to me. Anyway, here's Crenshaw quickly, Mr. Producer. Cut 13, go.
I can't recall any time in my history doing counterterrorism operation where we strike a group, whether that's a building or a boat or a vehicle, and then we were like, oh, well, there's survivors. We have to go. We can't kill them. Of course we kill them.
Of course you kill them. It's so stupid. We'll be right back.
Mark the 10, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have endorsed Steve Hilton for the Republican nomination for governor. I think he'd be a great governor, as a matter of fact. And we have our friend Steve Hilton with us. Steve, I read a piece a week or so ago, actually, and it was in Yahoo News by a guy named of Mike Berbernis, I guess. Republican elected governor of California. It's not as far-fetched as it sounds. And he's talking about the Democrats changed this whole primary system to help Democrats. And there's so many Democrats running with big names that, in fact, one Republican or two Republicans may take the 1 or 2 spot on this sort of jungle primary. Can you explain that?
Well, exactly. Well, this is a classic example of how they try and fix the rules, Mark, to help them. And they're so arrogant, they assume that if they set up this system, which they call the top 2 system, so there's no Republican primary or Democrat primary, everyone's on the same ballot next June in the primary, and the top 2 go forward to the general election. And there's no opportunity for anyone else, no write-ins, no independents, just the 2 candidates who emerge from the primary. And their assumption is that they'll always end up with one Democrat and one Republican, and the Democrat will always win, because they think of themselves as just born to rule here. There's arrogance of the one-party rule, and that's all they have to do. Just find one, and the machine gets behind one candidate, anointing them, as they did with Gavin Newsom. And I expect they were hoping to do that with Kamala Harris. And we'll see who they get behind now. Is it they're not exactly spoiled for choice. They're not sending their best. Is it going to be Eric Swalwell? Is it going to be Katie Porter? We don't know. But the point is, there are because of this arrogant assumption that the Democrat will win, there is a bunch of them have thrown their hat in the ring. The latest is, apart from Swalwell, you've got this billionaire climate fanatic, Tom Steyer, who's actually responsible in large part for the reason that we have the highest gas prices, highest electric bills, highest cost for everything in the country because of the climate lunacy. He's now running. And there's so many of them that there's this sense that they can divide up the vote so badly between them that you could end up with 2 Republicans. I joke that if that happens, that'll be the end of the top 2 system in California. They'll get rid of it as soon as they can. But look, I don't actually think that's going to happen. I think the machine will get behind one of their candidates. Pelosi still pulls the strings. I actually think it will be, amazingly enough, Eric Swalwell. Can you believe that? Look, the point is,
I know they're tight, and they go way back in the House there. So, and he may have entered because she told him that she will back him, right?
I think so. Apparently, she doesn't like Katie Porter, who until then was the leading Democrat. Exactly. And certainly not her staff. The thing that's interesting, Mark, is that so far, in most of the polls we've seen in the last few months, I'm actually leading. I'm leading all the Democrats and the other Republicans. Look, it's very early. I'm not taking I'm the opposite of complacent. We've got to work incredibly hard because they cheat and rig the system and all those things. They have the union money, the government unions, the corruption that goes all along with that. And so it's going to be very tough. But there's a majority for change in California. When regularly they ask the question, is the state going in the right direction or wrong direction? Big majority saying wrong direction for the last 2 years. People are sick of this nonsense. They know it's time for change. And that's why I know everyone looks at California and assumes it's going to be Democrat forever. I don't see it that way. I really believe we can pull off this upset next year just by going to exactly as the president has done across the country. It's just common sense. It's not complicated. We've got this bloated government. We've got the highest cost for everything because of the climate insanity. I look at what's going on now in Minnesota and this scandal with Tim Walz, and I assume that it's 1,000 times worse in California because you've had the same kind of one-party rule, just more of it for longer, bigger, more bloat, more corruption. And so that's one of the things I'm going to be focused on because we've got to cut the bloat in the government, cut the spending so we can cut taxes, and we've got to start with all this unbelievable amount of money that's being spent on illegal immigration. That's, of course, a factor in California in the housing crisis, in what's going on in the public schools, in the healthcare system. And we just got to, just like President Trump, we just got to get back to a common sense approach and put the needs of our citizens first.
The gas tax in California, we were just going over this on the program, is almost 71 cents a gallon. So when you go out there and you look at those gasoline prices and you're blaming the oil companies, the fact of the matter is you have the highest gasoline tax, and it's not even close, in the entire country. Everything this guy Newsom has touched turns to crap, doesn't it? I mean, you can't even get water into the fire hydrants.
Exactly. I mean, I had a story just from LA the other day. Someone told me they walked past a fire hydrant in LA, and there was a naked homeless guy sprawled all over the fire hydrant, and you just think it's just like such a metaphor. They can't get water in the fire hydrants, but they can get naked homeless people on them. I mean, that's just it. That's Newsom's California. Look, on the gas prices, it's by far the highest in the country, unbelievably higher than Hawaii in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, even though we have abundant oil reserves right here in California. That's a big part of why it's so expensive. It's not just the tax. It's all the regulations. There's something called the low carbon fuel standard, where they're bringing in ethanol from Iowa to mix with our gas. The cap and trade system, the total boondoggle, which is basically a tax on anyone who uses energy or produces it. You've got the refinery regulations that make it incredibly expensive to refine crude oil into gasoline. But the most disgraceful thing of all is that even with our abundant oil reserves, we are now importing 80% nearly of the gas that we use in California. They're shipping it in halfway around the world. Our biggest supplier of oil right now in California is Iraq. They're shipping it in from Iraq, even though we have it under our feet. And so that's all got to be reversed. It's not just the tax. All of this climate lunacy has to be reversed. And that's what I'm promising to do. And I can do most of that as governor through the rate, just as the president has shown the way with strong executive action, putting in good common sense people into the agencies, being well prepared. That's the plan in California. So instead of what we have now, which is $5 gas, if you're lucky, heading up to $6 or $7 gas, that's the prediction, maybe even $8, we're going to have $3 gas. And I know I say that, and people across the country kind of listen to that or watch me on. I remember I was on with Sean Hannity the other week, said $3 gas. I could see in his eyes, he's thinking, what's so good about that? That's just normal in other states. It's actually high for some states. But for us, that would be a massive, massive help to working class Californians. It's the people who are in their cars and trucks every day, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, getting to and from it. It's not these climate fanatics sitting in their work-from-home mansions, tapping away at their MacBooks. They don't care about the gas price, but for regular working people, it's a killer. And that's why it's the first promise I made in my campaign for governor.
When people talk about affordability, cost of living, you look at that tax. I mean, California's income tax, I think, is the highest in the country. If it's not the highest, it's the second highest. It is the highest. You look at the property taxes, among the highest in the country. You look at the minimum wage. People are trying to create jobs. It is among the highest in the country. I mean, it's not really an environment in which people can live freely, prosper, create things. And that's really changed, since Jerry Brown. But this guy Newsom, he's the worst of the worst, is he not?
The worst. He's the worst. And actually, what's really sick about it, actually, is that if you really know him, and I do know him a little bit, he's not actually an ideologue. He's not like a Bernie Sanders who actually believes in something and is pushing an agenda. Whatever you think about Sanders, he's sincere about his beliefs. They're crazy, but he believes in them. Newsom's much worse. He's a classic machine politician, just like Biden, actually, and Kamala Harris. They don't believe in anything except their own political advancement. And so he hasn't pushed this as a matter of conviction. He's done it out of convenience to get along, because he wants the support of the unions and the activists, and to climb the ladder of the greasy pole of politics in California. And that's why he's weak. He just hasn't stood up to any of them. And so this has just been pushed year after year after year. They've controlled the state legislature for nearly 3 decades now without interruption, with a supermajority since 2010, where they have a 2/3 majority, so the Republicans can't have any say in anything. And he's just stood there and let this happen. To be fair, Jerry Brown did actually, every now and again, push back against it and criticize it. Newsom's done none of that. He's just gone along with all the madness. And as a result of that, we are now 50th out of 50 states on affordability, 50th out of 50 states on opportunity. It's just the highest unemployment rate, highest poverty rate. Actually, in a way, it's just such a perfect encapsulation of this is what happens when Democrats get everything they want. This is the result, a total disaster. And it's a lesson to everyone across the country.
Wouldn't it be amazing you're elected governor and Elise Stefanik's elected governor of New York?
Oh, yes.
And you both have real shots, don't you? I think.
Yes, and she's we're very alike in our, we are uncompromising, and I think the real difference is than what we've seen before is that for too long in some of these blue states, I think the attitude of Republicans has been, well, it's so difficult here, and we just got to, water it down a bit and, be a kind of Democrat light. That's the way you win. And it's ridiculous because it's just not true. The Democrat experiments in these blue states have been a disaster, and you've got to call it out and say, we've got to stop and go in a completely different direction and be clear and strong in our conservative point of view and present a real alternative. Just like Reagan said, the line about, bold colors, not pale pastels. That's exactly right in these blue states that have been mismanaged for so long. And that's what Elise is doing in New York, and that's what I'm doing here. And I think it's going to be a real shock to people next year because they write these states off, but they're wrong to do that. I think both of us can make a difference. It'll be a fantastic outcome, not just for us, but for the whole country, because we defeat this, left-wing insanity at its core. I mean, so much of this nonsense has come out of California and New York over the years.
Mm-hmm. If people want to help you, whether in California or around the country, where do they go?
Mark, thank you so much. SteveHiltonForGovernor.com, F-O-R, SteveHiltonForGovernor.com. We got a big battle. The machine is very strong, the union machine, so any help at all is gratefully received. We're building a grassroots volunteer army. That's how we're going to get this done. So you can sign up there, SteveHiltonForGovernor.com.
All right, brother. Good luck to you. We're going to have you back many times. You're really great. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate it. See you soon. Thanks.
All right. You be well. So there are little leeches that exist on the internet, and none of you have heard of before. A guy named Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. It's like the People's Court or the People's Republic, Stupid-looking guy, but dumber than he looks. It's unusual. Then you got another guy, Mark Mitchell, you never heard of before. Remember Scott Rasmussen? We would have him on the show. That guy was great. Well, he eventually sold his company, and now there's a guy, Mark Mitchell, who's the chief pollster, the chief moron over at Rasmussen Reports. He doesn't like to talk about 2018 when he had the absolute worst predictions about, remember that midterm election where we're going to have 60 there and 30 over here, and he kind of got blown out. Well, they hate Dan Bongino now. Dan Bongino, how dare you defend yourself? How dare you speak up? Dan Bongino is a tremendous patriot. A former cop, former Secret Service. You know him. He had one of the biggest podcast programs in the country. He'll be back one day, and he can deal with these two reprobates on his own. But that said, these are two Carlson lapdogs. They support what Carlson does. Carlson is an anti-Semite. Carlson is a rewriter of the Holocaust. Carlson promotes the Third Reich view of World War II and trashes Churchill. And so they apparently support all that too, because they've already said they support Tucker. They're very tough, but they're very stupid. Now, these are pollsters who are supposed to be objective, right? Pollsters. Carlson also trashed the entire Republican Party. Now, you can question aspects of the party, what the party does. I've done it my whole life. But this guy's a pollster often for Republican Party. He's a clown. He's a fool. Just like the other guy. Oh, and by the way, they think you're old. They think I got it, Rich. They think there's 12 of you. They think it doesn't matter. And yet they can't stop obsessing over you. I'm not done with these guys. They're going to be fully exposed. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
when you're serving the government, you really can't defend yourself. It's very difficult. And if you say one thing or make one defense or post one thing, then all the munchkins come out of the woodwork. The nobodies, the people who are unaccomplished and can't do a damn thing, and they come out anonymously, except these two pollsters. This guy, Barris. What's the other guy's name again, Rich? Mark something. Whatever it is, he's a clown. And you got to be a fool to hire these guys as pollsters. Absolute fool. They make asses of themselves on the internet. That's where they spend all their time, I guess. I don't know. We salute all you great heroes out there, and we denounce all the lowlives, as you know, and we name names. But I want to thank all of you, Mr. and Mrs. America, millions and millions and millions of you, and we'll do this again tomorrow. God bless and be well.